don't know if you can see the disgust on my face. The tom was already on the ground. He was down in there. I guess you can figure out what happened next. Gone. All right, this is a morning hunt, and I'm actually about 1.5 miles deep in National Forest. And as you can see, it's very thick vegetation. So on this public land area, I'm in a section where it's more of an open canopy. Even the trees are smaller diameter, so they have it completely closed out to sunlight. So these deer feel really safe. I mean, if you've got vegetation that's 3 to 4 feet high, it don't have to be, 10 or 12 feet high. Deer feel really safe because they're not that much taller than 3 feet at the shoulder. So this deer feels really comfortable in his environment here. But the funny thing is, I got there late, and what I did was I went in and I actually freshened up this mock scrape. As I mentioned before, I'm just doing something different, trying to shake things up a little bit. So I made this mock scrape, and I've got my own bucklore, so I added some 454 to it, put it on the licking branch and a few of the leaves surrounding the scrape, and I walked back up to my stand, and I'm standing there, and I'm thinking, well, I forgot something. Well, it turned out that I dropped my jacket. So in the process of hiking all the way up there, my jacket was laying back in the woods somewhere, so I was going to have to backtrack out the same way I came in. So while I'm standing there trying to get myself regrouped, I look around and I see this deer. I was like, oh no. So I just stood motionless, and eventually he came out and got behind a tree, and I was able to get my video camera out of my backpack. I didn't have anything out of my backpack. Obviously, I'm still on the ground. Haven't even climbed into my tree stand yet. So I'm standing there on the ground, and I start videoing this guy, and he circles above me, and as you can see here, he's just up there feeding on apples. These are just some natural apple trees that someone planted, a few years ago. There used to be a home site there. And then, he just stops, acts normal, doesn't seem to be alarmed or anything like that. And I was actually in a crosswind. I wasn't completely downwind of this little 4-point, but I was in a crosswind, and he never did wind me. So then he circles back, and you can see he's licking his nose, trying to detect something. And he circles all the way back below me, 180 degrees, and then he gets on that 454 bucklore that I actually put down below my stand. So it's a real interesting situation here with this little buck. And, it was one of those mornings where, you're thinking, is anything going to go right? I got there late. I wanted to get there super early, and I didn't get there. This deer came out, I think it was about 7:25. That's where I'm standing at my tree. So I probably got in the woods at my tree stand at 7:15. And I wanted to be there, 30 minutes to an hour before daylight. And then I found out, I dropped my coat somewhere back in the woods somewhere. And it was, 49 degrees. So it's going to be a cool morning. So even though I had a couple of speed bumps in the way, it turned out really well. Got a lot of good video on this deer. One other thing that I like to mention here is fairly interesting to me is in my home state of North Carolina, they did a whitetail deer restoration project. I think it was back in the 50s or 60s. And they actually brought in deer from Wisconsin. So in these higher elevations, you can distinguish between the Wisconsin deer versus the native deer. Now obviously they've mixed, so the DNA is mixed between the two types of deer. But the deer that have more of the Wisconsin DNA, they are actually more of a darker brown, and they're actually a lot larger body. There's a picture coming up here in just a few seconds, or a minute or so, where I get a really good broadside picture of this deer. And I'm going to estimate that this 4-point buck is, I'm going out on a limb, I'll say he's 6 months old. I'm going to say this is his first set of antlers. He has no brow tines, and he's barely got the little forks on the end. And if you look at his body, long, straight lines like a thoroughbred. So those Wisconsin deer are typically a lot bigger than our native deer. All right, it's been one of those mornings, I tell you. Got up here late. I wanted to get up here really early, ended up getting up here late. I went down there and freshened up that mock scrape, got all that done. Walked back up here, was putting all my gear on the tree stand, and I got to thinking, I'm missing something. I've lost my jacket. I actually had it tied around my waist, and I'm a mile, probably 1.5 miles deep in National Forest. I've got to go back out the exact same way I came in, so I got to backtrack and try to find where my jacket's at. So fortunately, I had this little rain gear jacket because it was 49 degrees this morning. So it's pretty cool. But it's a great morning to hunt. It's just got in here late. Somehow or another I dropped my jacket. And then all of a sudden I'm looking around for my jacket, and I look up, and 20 yards away is a deer, and it's a buck. It's a little 4-point. And like I said, I just freshened up that mock scrape. And he kept raising his nose. He circled around, went up above me, and he come back down, around, back below me again. Then he's back out, and he nosed around where I put that 454 buckler. So I was just doing that, and I'm just doing that to try a different strategy. I've never done a mock scrape in September before. But you know, you read a lot of information, research that deer actually scrape year round. So I'm just trying to do something different to see if I can't shake things up a little bit. And I'm a little cool right now too. Didn't bring any insulated clothes. I figured that one jacket, insulated jacket, would be good enough. But unfortunately, it's laying in the woods somewhere, so I could go back and find it. So the weather's been great. You can look around. It's almost like it's fall weather. I mean, the leaves are actually turning. Got this nice breeze blowing. It's actually blowing from the north just a little bit, so it's cool this morning. My hands didn't get cold. This is another product that I got, that I've developed. Yeah, for a bow hunter, you know, you're always cutting, you know, your fingers out of your gloves. You know, you got one glove on one hand that you hold the bow with, and the other glove with the other hand with the release. You got to cut the fingers out of the glove, or either wear no glove. And that's what I typically do, is I don't wear a glove. But I came up with this. It's lined, insulated, and water resistant. I just clip it on my belt loop or on my safety strap and just stick my hand down inside it. I used to, the way I come up with that idea was I used to stick my toboggan in my jacket pocket and then put my hand in there. I came up with this, and it works out really good. So I used that this morning to keep my hand warm. And since I got here late, I decided I'd stay in here till 12 o'clock. You know, a lot of times you get some bucks, you know, especially older age deer, they just don't like to socialize. And they'll move at different times than the other deer. And sometimes you might get lucky and catch one at midday. Unfortunately, unless he was just coming through here when I started talking, nothing came in. So that little 4-point was in here about 8:30 this morning. And like I said, I was running behind. So I need to get back in here early and get set up. I'm only going to hunt this about 3 days in a row, and then I'm going to move my stand. It's really thick in here. Kind of give you guys a look around, show you what it looks like. There's a lot of stinging nettle, but it's probably 3 to 4 feet high. And what's not stinging nettle, you've got a lot of thick growth in here. I mean, small trees, and you're starting to get a canopy here. The sunlight can still hit the ground, and this stinging nettle can grow up, but then the trees are really close together. So it's thick, so it's not a huge canopy and wide open. You know, like some mature forests are that are, you know, 60, 70 years old. But then right up above us, you can barely see it past this little if I can zoom in here. Right in there. There's a field opening. And it's just briars and thick stuff. And I was hoping that the bucks would be bedding in there and coming out, because there's an apple tree right there. There's an apple tree right there, and there's another one above me. And evidently this used to be an old home site. So these are just apple trees that someone had planted years ago. And if the frost doesn't kill them, they produce. So anyway, I want to kind of give you guys a look around. There's a holler on this side, and then the ridge actually tops out about 100 yards up. And then it drops down, and there's a bench. And that's actually where I killed that one turkey this year that I videoed. So a lot of times they'll come from that bench over this way, and then they'll come across through this field. So that's the strategy. I'm coming in, trying to hunt really close to this thick area where I think it could be bedding. If there's food in here, I was a little apprehensive about coming in and spooking deer that, you know, potentially were in here feeding. But that wasn't the case this morning. I didn't hear anything blow and didn't see anything run off. So we're gonna get out of here and get some lunch and hopefully get back in before daylight for hunt number 2. Okay, as you can see, it's just now getting daylight. I'm easing up through here. I'm on an old logging road, doing some private land hunting today. I got my tree stand set up. I hunted there yesterday afternoon. Saw one little spike come in, probably the same spike I saw the other day. Temperature's about 51 degrees. It's completely still this morning. It's a nice cool morning for early bow season. So I'm gonna go in here and I'm gonna get set up and hopefully get some of these deer coming back. There's a bedding area off to my left here, which is on the east side of where my stand is. So I'm not gonna be facing the sun. The stand is actually facing the west. So that's the plan this morning. We're gonna try to get in there and see if we can't get a doe. All right, getting ready to get down. Didn't see any deer this morning. Saw plenty of squirrels though. Some things never change, does it? Get my hat on here. So, like I said this morning, back on private land and just trying to do a little change of pace. Don't want to do any stand burnout, but I do like where the stand is on game lands. And I like to get back there either this afternoon or in the morning. Did see that little 4-pointer that tried to get in the stand with us. I'm gonna put some more 454 buck lure out. I'm gonna keep doctoring up that mock scrape I made. I want to see if, you know, I want to see if it produces anything, if there's any positive results from that. And like I said, I've never done a mock scrape in September before, but it's worth trying, you know. Do something a little different, change things up a little bit. Maybe we can throw these bucks a curveball and they'll swing and miss and they can come in and maybe we'll get a shot. So that's what we're going to try to do. Is that's some of the strategy. Like I said, early season, we're coming into the second week now, so bucks are starting to feel the pressure. So you may have to change or modify the times that you're going in. They may be getting back earlier and coming out later, so you may have to move further back or just change the location of the stands or just change the times that you're actually going in. So you got to constantly be thinking about that. I mean, unless your trail cameras are telling you something different. If your trail cameras are still showing, you know, daytime travel and they're coming through your stand or wherever you got your stand set up, then you'll keep hunting it. But if you don't get any pictures and, you know, it looks like the bucks have disappeared on you, you may have to change the location of your time. So we're gonna get down. Just kind of show you what this looks like. This is that same stand I was on when I filmed that spike that came in the other day and those 2 does. Okay, just got down. Cool temperatures this morning. I think it was about 50 degrees. And saw 2 deer come through about 7:45. They were out of range. One of them was that same spike that I'd seen the last time. Actually, that's be the 3rd time I've seen him. So the deer kind of changed their pattern a little bit, so I'm gonna move my stand. Maybe I got a little bit of stand burnout here. Maybe they're on to me a little bit, And I am hunting private property here. So I'm gonna move my stand to a different area. There's a tremendous amount of mass crop this year. I mean, the acorns are falling everywhere. So the deer can pretty much feed anywhere they want. I think what I'm gonna try to do is I'm try to focus on finding those areas with more of an open canopy where I get some thick understory growth, you know, thick areas, something like a clear cut or a select cut, just any area that's got some thick briars, vegetation where a buck can hide. I feel like it's gonna be the best bet or best opportunity for me in a high pressured area to try to find a mature buck during early bow season. I think also sometimes what I do is I hunt too big of an area when in reality, you know, maybe a buck's at, you know, home range is 400 to 600 acres. And that's a pretty good size area. You know, I think 600 acres is 1 square mile. But during the summer and during the early part of the bow season, do they really use all that range? There's food everywhere. I mean, green vegetation, and then you got the soft mass, hard mass coming in. So I think a lot of times I need to hunt a little smaller. So I'm gonna focus on an area that's got that open canopy where I get that thick vegetation where a buck can get in there and hide, okay? I won't be able to get a long shot. I won't be able to see that much, but the buck will feel safe, he'll feel secure, and hopefully they'll give me an opportunity to get a deer. So that's gonna be the plan. So I'm gonna actually move my stand from this tree right here, and we're gonna move to another area. And I'm actually hunting in areas, kind of got both. I've got a closed canopy here where you can see a long distance, and more than likely, unless it's during the rut. I'm not saying mature bucks won't go in an open area, because, you know, a lot of times during the rut, you know, an old savvy buck will throw caution to the wind and chase a doe right through an open area, ends up getting shot. I'm just saying, if you play the percentages, there's a higher probability that a larger buck, a mature buck, is going to be in those areas with open canopy and that are very thick, where he can hide and he feels safe. So anyway, we're going to get down, make a move, and we'll see you on the next hunt.